Pink Poodle Crafts, join the Poodle Pack. It's time to get creative and make you laugh. Make your own art today. Pink Poodle Crafts is the way.
What a good boy. Hey, Crafter family. How's everybody doing? So this is going to be part 2 of our simple journal making video. But in this part, I'm not going to be doing any crafting. Well, I kind of am. I am going to be showing you something. But my point of this is to get you going, and also answer the questions that were in the last video. And I only had like 3 different questions, really. The first question that I saw that I think, well, let's just put it this way. I saw this one a few times, was like what I thought, where people were like afraid of the sewing part of the journal, and that was stopping them. And we're going to debunk that right now, and we're going to do this together. So I want you to get 3 pieces of copy paper, notebook paper, doesn't matter. I'm not looking for you to use scrapbook paper, nice paper. I'm talking junk paper. 3 bills that you're not using. You know, grab 3 pieces of paper, like so. These are just scrap pieces of copy paper that didn't print very well. They printed super light. So I use them as like drop paper sometimes when I need something to catch a mess, or if like I'm doing glitter, I'll fold it and use it to put my glitter. Well, that's what I use this stuff for. So I want you to get 3 pieces of copy paper right now, because I'm going to show you how to make. We're gonna stitch a journal basically with these 3 pieces of paper, because it doesn't matter whether you're using 3 pieces or 12 pieces. It doesn't matter. The procedure is exactly the same. But this is going to be your practice. I got the hiccups. This is also going to be your homework. And like, I want you to literally pause it, get your paper, and do this with me right now. It literally, all you need is paper. The other thing you need is a paper clip. Oh, where'd the paper clip go that I had? What did I do with it? Here it is. No, it's not. Okay. What did I do with the paper clip I had? I had a paper clip sitting here. Who stole it? Who stole my paper clip? Anyway, you're going to need a paper clip and 3 pieces of paper and some string. It doesn't matter what kind of string, because it doesn't really matter if it's not super sturdy right now, because again, it's just practice time. Practice time. Let me grab a paper clip before I go insane. I got one right over here. Okay, so we need string. Any string will do. Baker's twine, whatever, anything. 3 pieces of copy paper and a paper clip. And, well, you'll need a pair of wire cutters or something to cut the paper clip with, which, if you're a crafter, you should have a pair of wire cutters laying around, and maybe a pair of pliers, you know, or something. Most of us do. If not, you know. So you're going to open up one of the folds of the paper clip. That's the smaller fold in the middle. Open up the bigger one so that the bigger curve is open like that. And then right here, because it's straight there and then it has the curve, right after the curve right here, cut it like right here, like that, so that you have like that. You can cut a straight piece, doesn't matter. And if you have wire cutters, pliers, you're going to take this loop and you're going to further make it go down. Like, this is a very stiff paper clip. I wouldn't normally use this, but most paper clips are not this stiff. These are just like special paper clips. That's all I really had on hand. But anyway, you're going to make like a little hooky at the top. And if it's really wide, you could flatten it with your pliers and make it a little smaller so that it'll fit through your pages. It's hard to grab, but this paper clip, like I said, is ridiculous. Basically, you're making what looks like a pinhead, like that. And if you have a little piece hanging off right there and you have your little wire cutters, you can cut it. I have better wire cutters somewhere. So that it's, you know, because you want it to fit through the holes of your page. See, like this is like a ridiculously thick ass paper clip. Now, I have another one over here that I had already done with one of those colored paper clips. These are much easier to bend. So if you have one of these cheapy colored ones or a cheapy paper clip, they're much easier to bend than these and much easier to work with. But that is going to be your needle. You can keep these and use them as many times as you want, but that's your needle for your journal. You don't need a special needle. You can get a special needle. You can eventually invest in doll needles or the big, whatever they're called, like the ones with the big eyes in them. Or a plastic big hole needle or whatever it's called. They have plastic ones. They're blunt usually. This one's pointy, but I have a blunt one somewhere. Oh, here. Like this kind with the big hole. You can get that kind eventually. You don't need it. It's not necessary. Don't waste the money if you ain't got the money, because guess what? This will do just as good of a job. It will do no different of a job than those needles. This will be the same. So same. All right. So you got your paper clip needle. You only need one. Doesn't matter. You got your 3 pieces of cheap copy paper and your string. This is all you need to stitch your journal. First thing you're going to do is take your 3 pieces of copy paper and fold them in half. Just like this. You know how to do that. Oh, you need a pokey tool. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Something to poke a hole in the paper. If you're lucky enough to have a hole punch, you can punch it. But obviously, you're only going to be able to punch it at the bottom and punch it at the top, but not the middle. So you still need something to poke the middle. Now, if you have a skewer, like a wood skewer, I had one around here. Here's one. You can use that because they have a pointy tip on them. If you have an awl, you can use an awl. If you have like a pokey tool, you can use a pokey tool. And that's just like an awl tapers. So you can make the holes a little bigger if you needed to. A pokey tool just has like a needle tip on it, like a pokey tip. So there's lots of things you can use. If you still don't have any of that, I'm sure you can use something, whether it's a paper clip or something. You just might have to go through each page individually. The more blunt the tip is on it, you're going to have to go through each page individually. That's all. I mean, not a big deal. You can even take small scissors, go through 2 pages at once. But typically, one of these awls are not expensive. They're like $3, $4. You can look up on eBay and get a small AWL awl. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to poke a hole somewhere near the top, but not all the way up here. We're going to poke it like around 1 inch to 1.5 inches in on both the top and the bottom. And like I said, we're not using rulers. Or maybe I didn't say this yet, but we're not using rulers. We're eyeballing this because I want you to understand that, especially for a 1 signature journal, you can just eyeball it. If you were dealing with more signatures and you had to do it where you wanted it to look nicer, you wouldn't eyeball it generally because you'd want all your signatures to be the same. You can eyeball the first one, but then you got to match all the rest of them up. So since we're doing one signature, it would be equivalent to doing something like this, just one signature. And let's pretend this first page is your cover, because when you're sewing a journal or stitching or threading a journal, whatever, the cover is just an extension of the pages. You're not going to be doing anything different. The only thing different is generally the cover is usually a little thicker than the pages, but you're still going to sew it through everything the exact same way. You're still going to have the same amount of holes in your cover as you do in your pages, and you're going to stitch it all the way through your cover just like you would your pages. So this is going to be our practice. So I'm going to just eyeball it and put one hole here. This is, like I said, a practice run. I want everybody to do this. And not only do I want you to do it, I want you to take a picture of it. And I want you to send it to me either on Facebook, in the Facebook group. There's one hole, about an inch from the top. There's another hole. It's about an inch from the bottom. And then we're just going to eyeball the center and poke a hole. And there we go. 3 holes, right? Now, if I stick my awl in a little further, I can make them just a little wider, just so that it's easier. Okay. Now, when you're doing a lot of pages, you're going to clip both of your ends with these type of clips, or a binder clip of some sort. You know, something that'll fit around all your pages. You're going to do it on this end, you're going to do it on this end before you poke your holes. And then when you're sewing your signatures into your journal or whatever, you're going to leave the binder clips on so that your holes stay lined up. Now, you don't have to worry about it if you just have 3 pieces of paper. But when you have, you know, multiple pieces of paper, and some of them are smaller sizes than others, you don't want them to end up getting all kind of cattywampus after you poke the holes. So you want to do, you know, open your book up, and you want to put your clip on this side and put one on this side. Then you want to poke your holes. Now, if you don't have a very good poker tool, put the clip on one side and then do a little at a time by lifting up on these and going through some, and then kind of moving them over a little bit, and then poking through like the next one, and using that, like using the last one you poked, a guide to poke a few more. So in other words, if I take these sheets and poke 1, 2, 3 holes, then I'll take the last one that I poked at the back that'll have the holes in it, use that as a guide to poke through the next 3. See what I'm saying? So that's if you have like a really weak tool, or like even this awl, because I do have a good amount of pages here, I probably wouldn't sit here and try to drive this all the way through. I would probably do it like maybe 4 or 5 sheets at a time or something if I didn't have a hole punch. And then there's the hole punch that you can use called the Big Bite, and that'll get right to the middle, so you can punch your hole here, here, and the middle without having to fuss. So that's the first thing you're going to do, is clamp the sides of your pages, open it up, clamp each side, poke your holes. Very simple. For this, you don't have to clamp your pages because we're just practicing. Now, I want you to take a piece of string. Now that you've got 3 holes poked in your paper, take a piece of string and measure it 2 to 3 lengths of the paper. So here's like 1 length. I'm usually generous with my lengths, so it's like all the way out here. And then we'll do like 2 lengths. And you could even do a 3rd length if you need to, but you don't need no more than that for sure. And cut your string. Grab your fake needle that you made. Stick your string through one end and pull it out about 4 or 5 inches. And then hold it in your hand like so. Now, the trick is, if you want the sewn bit on your journal, where you sew your signature in the middle, if you want the knot to be in the center on the inside of the signature instead of on the outside here, if you don't want the knot there, you start from the inside if you want the knot on the inside. You start from the outside if you want the knot on the outside. Just remember that. Inside, inside, outside, outside. So if I want the knot on the inside, I'm going to start on the inside. And you're always going to start in the center hole. So I'm going to poke it through. I might take a little finagling. And I'm going to pull the string all the way until this string is about to the edge of half of your paper. And then you're going to take your clip that, if you have a lot of pages, should already still be on your journal. And if it's already there, you're going to slip your string underneath of it just to hold it down, or use a piece of washi tape to hold it down. So there you go. You got your first hole stitched. Then you're going to choose, because obviously you have to come up through a hole now. Choose whichever one you want. It doesn't matter which one you start at, but pick a top one or a bottom one. Doesn't make any difference in the world. You're going to do exactly the same thing. Just either you're going to start up there or you're going to start here. It doesn't matter. So I'm just going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to stick my little fake needle through. And I'm going to pull it till it's tight. And I'm going to check it. Make sure it's tight. Then, because we're going to start in the middle and finish in the middle, we're not finished yet, so we're not going to touch the middle until we're at the end. We start with it going into the middle, and we end with it coming out the middle. So we don't sew anything else to the middle until the end. So we still got another hole up here. So we're going to skip the middle and go here. So you only start and finish at the middle stitch. Okay, so then you stitch it all the way up, and you have one long stitch going right up the center. And like I said, you need to finish it at the center. So the only other place to sew, the logical thing to do, is to put it back into the center, because otherwise, where are you going to put it? It only makes sense because that's going to complete the stitch. It's kind of like those games where you play, where you have the dots, and one person puts one line, another person puts another line, another person puts another line, and then the person that closes off the box gets to put their initial in it. Did you ever play that game as a kid? Well, here I'm closing off the line. And you're going to put it in to the center. And you're going to try not to poke it through the string that was already coming through there. Because sometimes when you poke a needle through a hole that already has a thread or a string or whatever, sometimes, especially if it's a pointy needle, you can accidentally go through your thread that you already have coming out. Try not to do that. You want to make it sure it's going through by itself. You also just want to make sure that since you have this thread on the right side of the middle string, this middle string here, you want to make sure you put the other one on the other side. Now that doesn't mean that if you come in on this side, you can't just, once you do it, just literally lift the string up and stick it through. It doesn't really matter, but you know, if you could do it while you're stitching it so that you don't have to deal with that, then that's fine. And poke it through, make sure everything looks good on the back, it's nice and tight. Take your needle off, take your clamp off, and now, like I said, it's on either side of this center string, because we're going to tie it to that center string to keep everything nice and tight. So if it starts off on this side, for some reason, when you poke that last thread through, just lift it up and poke it, you know, like it doesn't matter. Then you're going to tie just a regular, like you're starting your shoelace, just one over the other, an end, and then one over the other, and end, and then cut it about a 1/2 inch from the middle. And guess what? You just sewed a journal. That's it. That's all there is to it. So that's why this is your homework. I want you to do this more than once. I want you to do it. I want you to take this, throw it away, get 3 more pieces of paper, and do it all over again from scratch. I don't want you to just take the string out and restring it. I want you to poke the holes. I want you to do it a few times until it's a comfortable thing, till you know it, till you can do it in, you know, with your eyes closed. And I want to see a picture of it. So do it and take a picture of it so that I can say, woohoo, you did it. Practice. That's what you need to practice. It's really important that you practice that. But this will be your practice. You could sacrifice a few sheets of copy paper or whatever. Take some old bills or junk from your junk journal piles or whatever you've been saving. Practice. Some old string. Could be baker's twine. Could be a piece of thread. It doesn't matter. Just as long as it's something to teach you the rhythm of that. Because that's the basis of everything. That's it. That's what you were so afraid of. For those who were afraid of this part of stitching, there's no difference. None. There's no difference in doing it in more pages or less pages. It's still the exact same procedure. There's nothing more to be afraid of. It's it. There's no difference. So that's your homework. You can put it in our Facebook group, the Pink Poodle Pack Creative Crafty Playground. There's a link in the description below. It's a group on Facebook. And you can share your art and all that stuff. And if you share that, in fact, anybody that does do this, that, mind you, has never done it before. I don't want people that I've seen do journals and I know that have done journals. If you've never made a journal and you were afraid of the stitching part and you do this, every time you do it, for every one that you do, and you take a picture of all of them together. So let's say you do 5. I'm going to give you 5 entries to win something. But you must either do 1 or 2 things. 3 things. You must either A, email it to me at pinkpoodlecrafts@gmail.com. Do not take multiple pictures of like a million of them. I want to see all of them in one. Like do a bunch of them and then take the pictures of them all done. So in other words, here's one I did before. So take one and put it next to the other one, put it next, like put them next to each other so that I could see that they're all different and that you did a bunch of them. Like you just lay them out like this, stagger them down. And if you do 5 of them, I'll let you do up to 5. So you'll win up to 5 entries to win something. I might send, what I'll do is I'll send you a mini journal kit. That'll be I'll put you in a drawing for a mini journal kit. And you'll get like paper and you'll get a piece of that vinyl to make your own journal. Stuff like that. Some embellishments. But you have to do it at least once to get 1 entry. Up to 5 times to get 5 entries. You have to email it to me at pinkpoodlecrafts@gmail.com. Do 1 picture. Put them all together. Just lay them out on your table. Take a picture. Email them to me. If you know me on Facebook, you can message me on Facebook Messenger. Or if you're in my group on Facebook, you can put it in the group as a picture and tag me in it. Those are the 3 ways. And what I'll do is, if you do it between now and the end of the month, January 30th, I think, is the last day of the month. On the 1st of February, I will do a drawing and pick the winner. So, but you have to do at least 1 and take a picture of it, or up to 5 or whatever. So that's your homework. You could win a prize for doing it, so you might as well. You might as well. So that was the first question I expected that, not question, but I expected that, like, fear. I had said that in the last video. And the next thing I want to go over is somebody had asked how many pages per signature. Now that question, it depends on what kind of pages you're putting in. But here's my rule of thumb. Start stacking your pages, start folding them and stacking them together. And when you get to where you could pinch it together and measure it. As long as it's not more than a little over 1/4 of an inch. Like this one's like exactly 1/4 of an inch, because like there is 1/4 of an inch and that is like exactly 1/4 of an inch. You can go a little bit further if you do, but pinch it at the base here, not up here. Pinch it here, and as long as it doesn't go too far over 1/4 of an inch, that's a good signature. So that means if you have thicker pages, obviously it's going to reach 1/4 of an inch quicker. This has like 20 pages in it. because a lot of them are thinner, like copy paper kind of. And a couple of them are thicker, but most of them are thin. So that's the rule of thumb, is pinch it at where the fold is and kind of just don't measure it at the fold like that. Don't stick it there. Stick it like a half an inch in and measure that. And if it's around 1/4 of an inch, don't add any more pages. It can be a little over 1/4 of an inch. That's fine, by like a 1/16 or even an 1/8 of an inch. But if it's under 1/4, you can add more pages. You don't have to. You can make it smaller. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. It's totally just up to you. And if you want to, make it thicker, that's on you. I wouldn't. That's just what I do. I can eyeball it and know. And most people, you can do that. So that's that. So it doesn't matter how many pages you're putting in, as long as when you get them in there, you start folding them and putting them in and you pinch it, it's not too much more than 1/4 of an inch thick. The other question was, how many signatures per inch of a spine? Well, if you're new to making journals, you're not going to be worrying about this yet, because I don't want you to ever make any more than a 1 signature journal to start off with. Even if you don't have any use for it and you just give it away, just make a 1 signature journal. Do not try to make 2 and 3 and 4 signature journals right away. But the rule of thumb that I have is, whatever size your spine is, whether it's this big or whether it's the size of this, width of this ruler, you start about 1/4 inch in from the edge of this spine and you put your hole. And I usually do it about 1 inch to 1 1/4 inches from the top and 1/4 inch in. It's very simple. And then I go 1/2 inch between each hole from here to the last one. So 1/4 inch and then a half, and then 1/4 inch on this side. And then 1 inch to 1 1/4 inches here, 1 inch to 1 1/4 inches here. And that's it. And then your middle one, you could pretty much eyeball it, because once you get one of them, you can kind of line the rest of them up. So if you did one, you could like do this and mark the others to match it. So you can really just eyeball it. I most of the time just eyeball it. Or you can use a ruler and actually measure to the center of your journal. So if this is however many inches, if it was 8 inches, you would do 4 inches. That would be your center. So that's that. But we'll go over signatures and stuff like that, and multiple signatures in another video. So I'm not going to stress that one too much. The last question, or I keep saying question, the last thing that people wanted to know and what was preventing them from making a journal was what to do with the journal, what to put in the journal after it's done. And that's another thing, that's something that I'm going to tell you, don't even think about that. Don't even worry about what you're going to do with it, what you're going to put in it. Now, let's say you have a specific thing you want to do with the journal. Let's say I want to make an art journal. You're going to take, 6 to 8 pieces of watercolor paper, fold them in half, and stitch them that way. If you want to make a specific journal and you already know what you want to do with it, then you can go from there. Base your papers off of that. And then later, when you go to embellish it, you can decide, well, if I'm going to use it for such and such, then I'm not going to want to really embellish it. You see what I'm saying? But, you can't be looking at mine and going, well, how do you know what to put on each page? Well, how do you know what to put on a card, an ATC, a tag? You just kind of do something. And keep it simple. Don't do anything complicated, especially in the beginning. But we're going to do all that. Embellishing comes later. I don't even want you to think about embellishing. I don't even want you to go, oh, I don't know what to put in it. Because that excuse blows my mind, that you would not make a journal just because you don't know what you would put in it later after it's all made. No. We're not going to do that to ourselves. We're not going to worry about what we're going to put in it right now. We're going to get to that later. So all I want you to do at this point is do your practice sheets. That's your homework. Practice sheets, as many as you could do. Up to 5 to get 5 entries into the giveaway. And then follow the first part of this video series that showed you how to pick, showed you to take your papers, fold them, and cut them to the right size. Whatever size you decide that is, to do a 1 signature journal. So go get some pretty papers or nice papers or whatever papers you want in your journal and stack them together until you can pinch it here and have about a 1/4 inch. And then you could do all what I showed you in the first video, how to cut them and all that, and get them ready. Get them ready for the third part, which is going to show you how to sew them, how to get all that stuff done. That'll be the third part. And then in the fourth part, we're going to do, before we even start embellishing anything, then we're going to do a 2 signature journal. And I'm going to get the ball rolling on that. But right now, I want you to make a 1 signature journal. I mean, I don't want you to finish it yet. I just want you to get it started. So that's your homework, is to do the practice sheets on the sewing and then get your papers together and ready. Another thing that somebody said, but I'll be doing the third part video, hopefully after this weekend, it'll be up at some point. All right. Anyway, somebody also asked me said that they were nervous to make a journal because they see all these journals that are selling on Etsy and stuff for $300, $150, whatever, and it's making them feel like they can't do that. Well, no, you can't do that right now. If you've never made a journal, I don't want you to do that. You wouldn't walk into a hospital and say, "Hey, I've never went to school, but I want to be a doctor. I want to be a surgeon. Can I operate on somebody?" It's not going to work that way, right? It's the same with the journals. You got to start off getting your toes wet and then work your way to your ankles and then work up to your knee. So don't compare yourself to somebody that's been making journals for 2, 3, 5, 8 years, okay? And think that you have to do this right away. Not that this is anything spectacular to be compared to, but what I'm saying is all of this and all the embellishing, I'm going to show you all that, the basics of it, if you wanted to do that. But right now, I don't want you to worry about, oh, well, yours looks better, blah, 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 because you got to practice, and that's what we're going to do. So your first journal, which will be 1 signature that we're going to do together, that I already did the first part for to get your papers ready. This journal, if it's not something that you want or can use, give it away. Use it as a Happy Mail. Use it as a birthday present. Use it as whatever. Just make it to give it away. Make it to be, just say, hey, I made my first journal. It doesn't have to be perfect. This one's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but we're not going to worry about any of that right now. I just want to get you making the journals. Just get you making it. I don't care. We're not going to worry about how well it's embellished, how perfect it is. Nope, that's not what we're doing. So I'm going to leave you with that. Do your practice sheets. Get your papers ready for your 1 signature journal like we did in part 1. And that's your homework. But I want to see these practice sheets, please. I want to see anybody that's not done a journal yet, who has been kind of wanting to do a journal and afraid to. I want to see these practice sheets. I showed you how to do it. It's very, very easy. You can rewind it and keep watching back. Go back, keep watching it if it's that confusing, but I don't think it will be. I think you'll be like, oh, once you do it, you're going to be like, oh, you're really going to be like, this is crazy easy. Once you actually sew these 3 pieces of paper together, you're going to realize how not scary it is. Because doing 3 pages is no different than doing 10, 20 pages. It's just, you might have a little bit of a harder time poking your holes. But if you do it a few at a time, it'll just take a little longer, but it'll be fine. And then you're going to string it exactly the same. But I don't want you to jump to that step yet, as I want to show you some things and some tricks and some things. So don't do it yet. Doing it with 3 pages is all I want you to do right now, because I want to show you some easy tips and tricks on how to do it with a lot of pages to make sure your holes line up straight and all that. So that's all I want you to do. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope this was informative. And if you have any other questions that I didn't answer or that you're concerned with or whatever, put it in the comments of this video and I'll address them in the next video, especially if it has to do with you know, any further fears that you have about putting together a journal or whatever. Anything to do with embellishing or whatever, we're going to conquer that in the fourth part, or the fourth or fifth part. So it's coming, so that you don't have to really ask questions about until later, until we get to that point. So anyway, I will talk to you guys later. I hope you guys have a great week, and make sure you do what you love and love what you do, and be nice to people. Oh, and I'm having a auction on Saturday, and I just put new stuff in my Zibbit store. The link is below in the description. I just put new stuff. I've got stamps, I've got dies, I've got some cool vintage postcard things that are like, they're faux vintage, but they're really cool looking. For like, they'd be perfect for embellishing a journal or putting in a pocket or whatever, or sending to somebody and writing on it because that you can use them. And there's a bunch of stuff. So look in the miscellaneous section and look in the stamps and dies section, and you'll find some cool stuff in my store. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.